بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So today we're talking about in Femina, we are talking about social order. So looking at hierarchy, protection versus autonomy of women, the merit of privacy for women, and some examples of strong Muslim women. So first thing is hierarchy. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, men are in charge of women because Allah has given more to some over others, and because they provide from their wealth. Therefore righteous women are to be obedient and look after their husbands' property and rights in their absence, because Allah has ordained that they be protected. So there is a concept of somebody in charge of somebody else. Now when somebody is in charge of somebody else, that is not because they are innately superior to them, but is for their protection, right? So when we say, for example, a parent looks after a child, that doesn't make the child better than the parent better than the child, but it is the responsibility of somebody, of the adult, to look after the child. Okay, and we'll talk about this whole concept of protection later on. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, emphasizing this this hierarchy and the need for obedience and the importance of focus in a woman's life, he said, if a woman prays her 5 prayers, fasts her month, i.e. Ramadan, protects her chastity and obeys her husband, it will be said to her, enter paradise from whichever door you wish. So one of these very tricky things in life is that we get distracted, right? Our priorities get lost, and this is something that we spoke about in the class, how to get married in Islam, or Islamic marriage. I can't remember what the class is called, but there's a whole playlist on marriage in Islam, is priorities. So one's number one priority is your own survival. Right, so in a woman's life, her number one number one thing is her own mental, emotional, and physical survival. That's number one, right? Nothing comes before that. Number two, before work, before kids, before life ambitions or whatever it is, friends, is the husband. So when we don't have that, when we have lots and lots of things on our plate, it becomes extremely difficult to be a good Muslim woman, because your priorities are drowned in so many other things, and so many other things that are valued by other people. And obeying your husband, that is not something that is valued by other people. That is something that's pathetic and low and lame in the eyes of many people, including many Muslims, right? So it's a very tricky thing to be in, right? You're prioritizing something that doesn't really seem to be a priority to most people and has no social value. The Prophet ﷺ was talking to a woman. She had some issue that he needed to solve for her, and the Prophet ﷺ asked her, are you married? And she said yes. And he said, how do you treat your husband? She said, I do as much as I possibly can for him. Like, I really strive my best. So the Prophet ﷺ said, pay careful attention to your relationship with your husband, because he is either your paradise or your hell, i.e. he's either your route to paradise or your route to hell. Right? So this again emphasizes the importance. Obviously, in anybody's life, anything or anyone could be your route to paradise or hell. The screen could be your route to paradise or hell. The cat that you looked after or didn't look after. The job that you did or didn't do. There's many things that can lead you to paradise, lead you to hell. But here the Prophet ﷺ is advising this woman and saying, this is a very, very important issue in your life. Right? This is a really important issue of your life. You need to prioritize in your life your relationship with your husband. Now, does that apply to a husband? Obviously, to some extent as well. But we don't have a hadith like that where the Prophet ﷺ said, hey, do you have a wife? So yes, prioritize your wife. Right? That's not true. In fact, we see somewhat the opposite, or to some extent. That the Prophet ﷺ was asked, in a woman's life, who has the greatest right over her? And he replied, her husband. Right? And in a man's life, and he replied, his mother. Right? So again, we spoke about this in that other class about priorities. So you should never put your mother against your wife. It should never be like that. These are two separate relationships, and they should never be in one relationship. But again, for the woman, it's like, what is your number one goal? Your number one goal, your number one important thing is, I'm doing my fard, I'm prioritizing my husband. That's a really important thing, right? And that shapes and molds a whole relationship, right? And so if you went and asked, for example, the husband of an otherwise religious woman, she's an otherwise religious woman, meaning she keeps the Sharia. If something was haram, she wouldn't do it. You go and ask him, does your wife apply this hadith? Right? That's a question to ask your husband. Sit down, a frank question. You ask your husband, do you feel that I apply this hadith? Right? It's not that you have to prove anything to him, but it's for yourself. Right? Just like we could ask him, he could ask her a frank question, am I a nice person? Am I kind and considerate? Am I merciful? Am I a good leader? Do I do my job as a husband, right? But as a woman, I need to know my number one person is more important than my work, more important than my friends, more important than the kids, more important than my parents, more important than my siblings, more important than anything else is my husband. And the Prophet ﷺ said, were I to command anyone to prostrate to anybody else, I would command a woman to prostrate to her husband. So this is a classic scenario. You will see, for example, a woman who could be very deferential and respectful to certain people, but very disrespectful and undifferential to her husband, because he's always there. He's not that amazing. He's not that handsome. They say in Arabic, la mal wa la jamal. He's not that handsome. He's not that wealthy. Like, he isn't that amazing. In fact, he's embarrassed himself on multiple levels. Like, he's very, very imperfect individual. So it's very difficult to have that much reverence. Right? Like, I can have reverence for the CEO of my company because I don't interact with him all the time, and I've heard some amazing things about him. When I have worked with him, it was amazing and very inspiring. So you have this reverence. This sheikh online did this and that, whatever it is. Everything that's far away from you is easy to respect. It's very hard to respect something that's close to you, right? To respect your parents is quite hard, right? It takes quite a lot of iman to be very respectful towards your parents. It takes a lot of iman to be very, very respectful towards an imperfect human, right? And if you think about it, this is very much like the test of the shaitan, right? The shaitan was told to prostrate to something that is less than him, something that doesn't deserve sujood. So that's the question that is put to the shaitan and put to a woman. Are you willing to go nearly to the point of prostration to somebody who doesn't deserve it, just for the sake of Allah? Can you put your ego down for that? It's a huge test. It's not an easy one. We should never judge any woman who is failing in that regard, just like all of us are failing in our regards to our respect to our parents. May Allah forgive us all. But this is a key thing to work on, a priority for a woman to work on. And on the flip side, or part and parcel of this, the Prophet ﷺ said, he is not of us who does not show mercy to his inferiors. So a husband who is not merciful and kind and understanding and generally trying his best to make life easy for his wife and not be overbearing and be caring, concerned, he's not of us, the Prophet ﷺ said. And show respect to his superiors. Similarly, that woman who does not, there is such thing as a superior, right? Your husband is your superior. You do have to show respect to him, right? And so if you don't show respect to him, the Prophet ﷺ says, you're not of us, right? So this is the two sides. Parents have to be merciful towards their kids, kind, help them, make it life easy for them. Kids have to be respectful. Right? So this is an Allah-centric hierarchy. It is not about me and you, sister. It's not about the struggle of the sexes or the struggle of power or whatever it is. It is about how Allah wants us to worship Him, right? Just like the ma'moom, the person following, the follower in prayer. You don't tell the imam, hey, go into ruku', hey, come out of ruku'. He's the imam, as the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا جُعِلَ الْإِمَامُ لِيُؤْتَمَّ بِهِ. The imam has only been put there to follow, right? And now you're vying with him to follow. Similarly, your husband is like the imam of your prayer. This is your life and this is your prayer. He goes into ruku', you go into ruku'. He comes out of ruku', he comes out of ruku'. He goes into sujood, etc. Right? You don't go in before, you don't come after. Right? So there is this taba'iyya that you follow him. Right? And hierarchy is there for the benefit of all, right? It's there for the benefit of all. It is not there for the benefit of some. This is not a androcentric religion. It's all about males, right? And so, again, many people, they see this as misogyny, right? Misogyny is like, oh my God, women are dumb, women are stupid, women are low, let's use them, right? That's misogyny. Islam is not about misogyny, but Islam promotes patriarchy. Patriarchy can sometimes lead to misogyny, but it's not the same thing. Patriarchy is the idea that men and their male descendants are in charge. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the backbone of society is through men. Ar-rijal qawwamuna an-nisa. Men are in charge of women. So your husband, your son, your grandson, your great-grandson, these are the spine of society. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen to create the social structure of Islam. This is how things work. This is your tribe, right? And again, we speak about this in the class on marriage, creating the tribe, etc. And so respecting hierarchy is for your own benefit and happiness. It's like respecting how your digestive system works. Because digestive system then digests the food, and so everybody benefits from the nutrients. If you don't respect that, it's not going to work. Right? Respecting the rules of the road. Everybody's going to be in danger if you don't do that. And so when we see challenges to patriarchy and we see things like, why would you obey your husband? What kind of a woman are you? Right? That's backward, that's this, that's that. You're liberated from that. In reality, this is just a Pinocchioan, whatever the adjective of Pinocchio is, attempt to control you. That's what it is, sisters. Okay? So they're only trying to remove traditional hierarchy so that they can control you instead. It's very simple. Right? It's like a coup. Right? People, so this government is a bad government. Look at the bad things they do. All they're trying to do is rule you instead of them, right? So it's a very simple thing. It's somebody else trying to control you. So it's not, nobody's trying to liberate you. Women have not been liberated in the West. Women are not free. They're not liberated. They're just controlled by somebody else, right? And I'll just give a kind of vignette of that, kind of an example of that. Mr. Edward Bernays, right? So that is his 1930s, I don't know what it is exactly, 1940s. He's the father of spin, the father of how to manipulate the masses. So he was approached by the cigarette industry, and he said, we have a problem in the US. What is that problem? That women don't smoke. Right? Women don't smoke. And so that's a problem because we are losing half of our revenue. So he was approached and asked, we need you to solve this problem. So what did he do? Right? He created this thing called the torches of freedom. This idea that we can liberate women from free women, tell them to free themselves from the stigma of smoking, and you make them kind of express their liberty by smoking, right? And so this actually happened, right? So here, women are free. Ancient prejudice has been removed. Okay, so it's a very liberating thing, right? You can go ahead. Don't obey your husband. Go ahead and smoke. It's fine. This is a way that you can be free from these, from the shackles of patriarchy. It's not. It's just there to make money out of you, and that's the case, right? Women's lib is just there to abuse women. That's all it is to do. That's the only point of it. We had images like this, wake up to your energy, promoting cigarettes, etc. for women, etc., etc. And so Edward Bernays said, we are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, and our ideas suggested largely by men we have never heard of. So the role of patriarchy is to stop other men controlling women. That's what it is. It's as simple as that. So when a woman is trying to not be controlled by a man, what is actually happening is the following. It's just a displacement reaction. Some other man is coming in to control her. That's all it is. Right? And we see that, again, very frankly, on a kind of, relationship background. Imagine, for example, some lady, she goes to a bar, right? She just had an argument with her husband, and then the guy knows what's going on. He understands that he can take advantage of her emotions. So he makes her feel comfortable, have a few drinks, shows how empathetic he is and how he understands her. And suddenly she feels, wow, my husband or my boyfriend is so oppressive. This guy is so nice. So all he did was just displaced one control with another control. That's all they are doing. Right? That's all they're doing. So I just want to take an example of this, right? And I'm being so frank, but it's just very important because people just beat around the bush and they don't really say things as they are. So there is systemic abuse of women in this Western paradigm, in this liberal female thing, right? And just a case in point, formal office wear, right? You are in the office, look at how men are dressed, look how women are dressed. Right? What percent of men in their formal setting have their chests exposed? Right? Or have tight trousers that revealing the shape of their behind? Right? And again, as we discussed last lesson, don't tell me that's not a sexual act. That's a sexual act. Right? A woman revealing cleavage is a sexual act. Right? So dressing is not just, oh, I'm just smart. You're not smart, sister. That's a sexual act. So when a man goes to an office, by default, it is not a sexual act. It can be. But for a woman, by default, the normal way that women are dressed in the office is actually a sexual act. Right? Look how much skin is revealed. Why is it that women are forced, in reality, to show more skin than men? Is it because they're hot and that they need to cool down? Is it because they're really free, or are they being controlled? The answer is they are being controlled. For the benefit of who? Other men. So you can have this strict man who says, no, wife, don't dress like that. And he's oppressive. Or you could have somebody else calling the shots, which is creating this culture of this is how you dress, this is smart, this is cool, this is valued. In reality, it is seductive. That's what it is. And it is for the benefit of all the men to see. That's what it is. So basically, you are just being used by somebody else. Simple as that. That's what's happening. Very key concept to learn. Celebrities, right? Google right now, male celebrity. What percent of them are attractive? Maybe 50%, maybe more. Female celebrity, what percent of them are attractive? All of them, with a few exceptions. Male comedian, what percent of them are attractive? Female comedian, what percent of them are attractive? And so you're going to see male musician, female musician, right? It is not based on their abilities, right? For a female, it is mostly based on their looks, right? This is the primary thing. The primary thing. You become a model and then you become a musician, right? So this is pressured, systemic visual prostitution. That's what it is. Is you create a system where you feel I'm free, but in reality, when I turn up at school, I have to present myself in a certain way, be noticed in a certain way, show my body in a certain way. When I go to the swimming pool, right? When I go to the work, when I walk down the street, all of these things. Makeup. Do men wear makeup? So if it's a formal setting that is not a sexual setting, that your looks have nothing to do with this work, why are you wearing makeup? Oh, because I want to look a certain way. Why do you want to look a certain way? You have been brainwashed into making yourself appealing to the men around you, right? And then it's not always that simple. It's also part and parcel of that is women competing with women of how attractive you are, right? But in a public way. So women do compete in their private lives as well. That's true. Like men compete in different ways. So those things, that's kind of unavoidable. But the point is, you are now exposed to everybody. Why? Because you're quote unquote free. And you're showing your body to everybody so that everybody can enjoy it. And you can be judged accordingly. And believe you me, you are being judged. And you are being graded. And you are being dealt with. Hired and fired, etc. Not solely on that thing, but that has a big role in what you're doing. Right? And so this is systemic defeminization. So it's not just defeminization meaning kind of debauched behavior, but also defeminization meaning I don't want to be controlled by a man, and so therefore I have no submission to men, and I don't like it, and I don't value it, and I find it oppressive, right? So this defeminization is systemic abuse, making you, the female unhappy. So let's think about the paradigm of Juliet, right? Beautiful, innocent, pure girl falls in love with the wrong person. Fast forward, Marilyn Monroe, not so innocent, but at least way more feminine than the feminine pictures today. Now we have Spice Girls, girl power, whatever other kind of singers and kind of things that are out there. It's very, very gross, right? Very, very gross. There's nothing feminine about it anymore, right? And it creates this female who is antagonistic to any sense of obedience or submission. So she might be a friend, she might be a girlfriend, but she's not a wife. So she doesn't have the ingredients in her to actually to lead to her own happiness, right? She is a heterosexual it's heterosexual lesbianism. What does that mean? Meaning she is attracted to men. She would like to be with a man and to be happily married with a man, but she doesn't. She has a self-destructive system in her head, which is whenever there's any sense of control or superiority and she has to submit, she will always freak out and always fight against it. And it can't be like that. I'm being controlled, I'm being controlled, I'm being controlled, right? It's a bit like the beginning of Monty Python, the Holy Grail, if anybody remembers it, right? Where King Arthur is on a search for the Holy Grail, and he's saying, tells the peasants, I'm the king of the Britons, and they're saying, oh, I'm being oppressed, right? So the joke is kind of an exaggerated sense of oppression. So this is what we have. And this is not Farid Dingle, the puritanical Muslim cleric kind of saying this. This is the normal Western view. Go into a pub, go into a bar, and talk to men about the Western woman, right? And they're going to say the same thing. There's no submission. Like, it's this continual fight for power, right? Google it, research it. This theme comes up again and again in films. It's coming up again and again. Not mainstream, that's true, because mainstream is still promoting it as good, right? Rugged individualism as a woman is still good, right? That's still a good thing. Go girl, you show them. But when it comes to being a wife, it doesn't actually work, right? It doesn't work. And so it's systemic abuse, meaning you are training me as a female to be a certain way that will lead to me being unhappy. It was contrary to my fitrah, contrary to nature, right? And this is what the shaitan has promised, is that I will mislead them, and I will create in them false desires, and I will order them to change the nature created by Allah. And the Prophet ﷺ cursed men who assume the manners of women, and cursed women who assume the manners of men. And it's not just the way that you dress and move, but it's just the functioning, right? It just lacks all femininity, and so so what happens then? It's only girlfriend material. Girlfriend material, as again we spoke about in that class on marriage, is quite easy to fulfill, right? It's quite easy to fill. Marriage material is not. It's not the same. So you might be popular at school. You might be popular in the office. You might get laughs. You might have friends, but nobody wants to marry. Well, when they would like to marry you, but if they're married to you, they would continually have a sour taste in their mouth that, man, I wish I was married to a woman. I wish I was married to a woman, right? So then it creates unhappy women and unhappy men, and society doesn't work, right? And as one psychiatrist said, the only happy men are gay, right? Meaning, what does it mean? It's like there's no women there anymore. So there's nobody there to fulfill that need of a man to be with a woman and a woman to be a man, because the woman is continually trying to be something that she's not, right? And so in Islam, the child is submissive to the parent, and in Islam, the wife is submissive to the husband, right? And I now sound very, very Andrew Tate, but again, Andrew Tate's original things like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? Again, there was clear misogyny in many of the things that he said, but the attraction before he even became Muslim was the attraction of any sane Western man, right? is that, yeah, of course I want that. I remember this is 15, maybe 20 years ago, on Skype. I don't know if anybody uses Skype anymore. I received an advert on Skype, and it said, "Are you sick and tired of Western women?" This is not some kind of Muslim thing, right? This is a generic advertisement to a man saying, "We don't like you anymore. You're annoying." So in Islam, the wife is submissive to her husband, submissive emotionally, submissive physically, can control where she goes. Can I leave the house? Can I not leave the house? Can I go to another country? Not go to another country, etc. Sexually, as we'll discuss, but not religiously. You're not in control of her soul. Right? You are not Allah. You're not in control of her soul. Right? You don't know what's happening inside of her soul. You know what she's saying, you know what she's doing, but you don't know how she is inside. And you can't judge her. You're insincere in your worship. How do you know? Right? So you are not God, and you are not a prophet. You are a husband. She's on her spiritual journey, and you're on your spiritual journey. You're not in charge of her soul. Right? Yes, there's some level of advice, like there is between brothers and sisters in Islam. Yes, there's things in religion that affect what she does and what she says. True, but why she said what she said, what she needs to work on, how she's developing spiritually. You're not her sheikh. You're not her murabbi. You're not trying to, that's not who you are. Financially, in Islam, you're not in charge of her money. So she has assets in another country and you don't know what they are, and that irks you. I'm sorry, Habibi, that's got nothing to do with you. That's not part of her submissive nature to you. She decided to sell those assets, and you don't know for how much, and you don't know how much money she has, and you don't know how much zakat she pays or who she pays it to. That has nothing to do with you. Right? That's not part of her submissive nature to her husband. So the Prophet ﷺ, concerning emotional submission, he said, "Shall I not tell you about your wives in paradise, i.e. these women of this life who will be with you in the next life?" The Prophet ﷺ said, "She is that loving and childbearing woman who always tries to reconcile with her husband. If she wrongs him or he wrongs her, she will take him by the hand and say, 'By Allah, I will not sleep until you are happy with me.'" Right? And so can we see she's taking a certain role in their marriage. He's done something wrong. She wants it to be solved. Obviously, she does something wrong. That makes sense, right? And obviously, anybody who wrongs anybody, male or female, your wife, husband, or otherwise, you should always try and make up with them, of course. But here we see a paradigm, right? She's loving, she's caring, she goes back to him, always trying to reconcile with her husband, as opposed to, well, it's his fault, deal with it, right? That kind of attitude, right? So having an attitude, this kind of phrase, this is valued, right? He better be begging to come back, right? That kind of attitude is not Islamic, right? It's not Islamic, it's un-Islamic. And again, the Prophet ﷺ said, pay careful attention to your relationship with your husband, because he's either your route to paradise or your route to hell, right? So you're really trying to use this thing, which is your relationship with your husband, as a means to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So what does it mean that she's emotionally meek and docile? That she's deferential, she defers to him, right? As long as it's not haram, it's like, it's okay. We want to buy this thing, we don't want to buy this thing. Okay, this is my opinion, but it's up to you, right? Accommodating, okay, right? So that kind of person. So it's a huge problem where women are meek, deferential, accommodating, easy to please at work, but not at home. And that is, unfortunately, the majority of women. Why? Because it's emotionally easy to do that, right? You're at work, the emotional weight and investment of your boss and people at work, it's not like your husband, is it? So obviously, it's not as easy to be meek, deferential, accommodating, easy to please with somebody who you've known for 20 years and who is not worth it, with all due respect, right? Most husbands are not worth it. They don't deserve meekness. They deserve a slap in the face. They don't deserve to be deferential because they have no clue what they're doing. They don't deserve to be accommodating because they're not accommodating, and they don't deserve to be eager. They don't deserve somebody who's eager to please them because they're an ogre. But that's not the point. This is the key thing. When we have a spiritual way of looking at it, we're like, I am not talking to my husband anyway. It's not relevant whether he deserves a meek, docile, deferential, accommodating, easy to please wife. It's not about that. It's not a personal. It's not about the person. It's about what the person represents. Right? It's like the Kaaba. Does the Kaaba deserve your sujood? No, the Kaaba does not deserve your sujood. Okay, why do you do sujood to it then? You're so careful of facing this direction and that direction. Why? Because Allah has told you to do that. Your parents do not deserve your respect, but Allah has told you to show respect to them, even if they don't deserve it. So this is this key concept, right? Key concept. It's not about what your husband deserves. It's about how you can win Allah's pleasure by showing respect to him. And important concept. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, he said marriage is a form of slavery. So who's the slave and who's the master? Well, you tell me. Who is the slave and who is the master in a marriage then? What's the answer? The answer is that the man is the master and the woman is the slave. Oh, really? Wow, that's hardcore, right? That's crazy. So yeah, so the Prophet said, be very careful then who you marry your cherished daughter to. So marry the right person, right? Because it is a form of slavery, meaning I'm stuck. This man has control over me. I'm going to serve this man. I'm going to defer to this man. I'm going to be obedient to this man. Very much like a slave. Right? Very much like a slave. Right? And then walk into a bar tomorrow. I'm not actually telling you to do that. Go and ask the average person on the street, would you like a female slave? They're like, are you joking? I mean, that's like illegal, right? Yeah, but would you like a female slave? Would you like a female in your life that literally does whatever you say? They'll start laughing, and of course they would, because every man wants something like that, right? For a woman, it will be a funny laugh. You know, you go and talk to some women and say, hey, would you like a male slave? They start laughing, giggling. But at the end of the day, there's a problem because what's that called, right? What's that called? It's called a toy boy. That's what it's called, right? Toy boy is a term for a kind of good-looking, dumb man who doesn't have the same kind of power that you have that you can use for sexual things. That's called a toy boy. So a toy boy is not actually emotionally pleasing to a woman. All right, it might be physically pleasing as a temporary thing, but it's not the whole package. Whereas for a man, that's actually what he's looking for on some levels, right? And so it's like, oh, that's a bit silly. You're trying to say that I'm like a slave. It's like, yeah, that is the case. So you're trying to say that the way to my husband's heart is like being deferential and obedient and acting like a slave. Like, isn't that a bit like weird? It's like, that's not weird at all. That's not weird at all. Go and ask men. Go and talk to them. Go and ask them. Like, it's a very simple thing. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, says, Allah sets forth the example for you of the disbelievers. It says, the wife of Noah and the wife of Lot, each one was, quote, underneath one of our righteous slaves. That's the phrase in Arabic. When you say married to somebody, you say, kanata tahta. They were beneath, right? They were underneath something. So your wife is underneath you. Isn't that very misogynistic? No, it's not misogynistic. It is misogynistic is women are dumb and stupid. I'm not saying you're dumb and stupid. I'm saying you're valued by being submissive. Right? That's like saying a car that actually, that's like saying, for example, that's like saying that, how does it work? An employee that does what is told in a creative way is bad, right? And so, why is it, for example, that people have affairs with their secretaries? Because that's exactly what they are. This secretary is fulfilling an emotional role that the wife isn't. Perhaps also because she's young and attractive and influential, easily influenced. That's something else, right? But on a basic level, it is the idea that she actually listens, right? So this woman has been empowered to be individual and assertive and independent, and that's great in her own world. At work, it's something that when she comes home, please don't be like that, because nobody likes you. It doesn't actually work. And I want to say nobody likes you, meaning no Muslim man, no non-Muslim man likes it. It's not actually attractive. It's not actually, long term, it's not actually appreciated at all. It's just a pain in the neck. Similarly, Ibn Umar, he went to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, I was married and then this thing happened. And she says, I had a wife under me. That's how you say in Arabic, right? So there is this clear hierarchy, natural hierarchy, that is how things work, right? And so this wife is meek, docile, sure, okay, no worries, don't worry about it, it's overlooked, it's okay, eager to please, sure, if you like me to do it. All things being equal, key to do that. But she's assertive when? In the face of oppression. So this is again the flip side of things. You are not assertive even though you're being oppressed. That is wrong, sister, and you're part of that problem. You are being emotionally, physically abused, and you're not doing anything about it. And then you go to your parents, and parents say, just be patient, Beti, it's okay. Wrong. So being assertive in the face of an oppressor is important. Okay. Also being assertive in the face of with things that are needed for a relationship, right? So there was this question. There's a lady in Saudi Arabia. Okay, so she's in Saudi Arabia and she says, "Listen, I have physical needs, and I don't know how to initiate stuff with my husband because I can't say anything. That's just really weird." So then she's saying, she's finding other routes to fulfill her needs, which are haram. And so you have to be assertive. You don't have to be super direct. You can have some haya. You could be direct depending on, culture or this kind of things, but you do need to express things. Like you have to this is actually important, right? So now this sister, for example, she has physical needs or emotional needs that are not being met. And then it's like, okay, I need to talk to him about my husband about that. Okay, maybe talk to him another angle. And it's like, okay, this is a thing that's recurrent. He's like, can you just drop it? It's like, no, I have to be assertive because this is necessary for the relationship. Like the relationship cannot continue without these things. So you have to be assertive at certain points. But again, you're assertive in a prostrative kind of way, if that's an adjective at all, right? So the Prophet ﷺ said, were I to command anyone to sujood to anybody, I would command a woman to do sujood to her husband. So you can be unbelievably submissive while being assertive, right? And just take an example of that, right? How we are told to be with our parents if they're not Muslim, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, but if they strive with you to make you ascribe unto me that which you have no knowledge, then do not obey them, right? So your parents, who you have to have extreme reverence for and respect, if they tell you to do shirk, do you do shirk? No. So you can be assertive, like, I am not going to do what you're asking me to do. You can be assertive while being very respectful. Deal with them kindly in this world. Right? Deal with them kindly in this world. So you ask yourself the question: how should you talk to your parents? You should be respectful. Should you be deferential to your parents? Your parents said, let's eat later. Sure. Let's eat earlier. Sure. Let's not eat this. Let's do this. Let's do that. Okay. Do you have to deal with the childishness of your parents sometimes? Yes, you do. Do you have to listen carefully, sister? Do you have to be patient with the childish nature of your husband sometimes? Yes, you do. Right? As long as it's not harmful. Right? So you still have to be respectful. Right? You still have to be respectful. But what if you're going to be assertive then? What if you're going to, right? So how should, if to be respectful with your parents, how about your husband, right? Your husband has a higher rank than the parents, right? Higher rank than your grandparents. How would you be assertive with your father? You need to be frank with your father about a thing. How would you do it? You can be assertive while having extreme adab. Can you be assertive with your husband? Yes, you can, while having extreme adab. Respectful, as if you're doing sujood. I'm not being disrespectful, but I need to ask you to do this. You have to do this. I'm asking you to do this. What you're doing is wrong. I'm telling you can't do this. This is wrong, right? And so again, we have extremes. Husband abusing people in the family. Husband abusing the wife. Husband not doing certain things that they really, really have to do. And this is very important for the relationship. And the woman is not assertive. That is wrong. And so we have to remember that. Okay, so wife submissive, emotionally, physically, right? So again, when we're saying emotionally, there is a hierarchy, right? So again, another side of the hierarchy is who tells who to do what, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, As to those women on whose part you fear disloyalty and ill conduct, admonish them, right? Tell them off firmly. Next, refuse to share their beds. I'm not going to sleep next to you. And then beat them. When in the ulama, they say, many people, they translate this in the wrong way. It does mean beat them, but just like discipline them, right? So you can't, if you were to physically discipline your child, you can't like harm them, right? Similarly with your wife, you can't harm her. But the fact is that there's a clear difference in hierarchy, right? You are actually in a position to physically, emotionally and verbally discipline your wife. Whereas, and again, it doesn't mean, we're not talking about domestic abuse, we're not talking about actually beating a woman up and all that. That has no place in Islam whatsoever. I'm not talking about that. But there is such a thing as disciplining your wife. That does exist, right? So that has a clear emotional role in the hierarchy, right? The right to command, to correct, and discipline. So a woman does not have a right to correct and discipline her husband. She has an obligation to advise, just like you have an obligation to advise any Muslim, right? Somebody is smoking, you command the right and forbid the wrong, right? That's a haqq that they have on you, right? But the right to correct and discipline is that of the man, not of the woman, right? And so Ibn Abbas, explaining this verse, men in charge of women, he said, they have been charged with disciplining women in accordance with justice. So not just however they want, right? But they are, that is a thing. So that's a key thing, like who is who, right? So you're in the supermarket, and there's this kid telling his mom, "Mom, I hate you. You never buy me anything. If you don't buy me this thing, I'm never going to talk to you ever again." Who has a right to throw around, commands like that? So a wife does not have a right to command. I'm telling you, you have to do this. You can't tell your husband. You can ask your husband. You can talk to your husband and say, "Listen, I need you to understand why I'm asking you for this." You can be clear. You can be assertive, but you can't command somebody, and you can't discipline somebody, right? So sleeping in the doghouse, right? Do you, as a woman, have a right to say, "That's it, get out of the room, you're sleeping on the couch tonight"? You can't do that. That's not your prerogative. That's like disciplining your parents, right? "That's it, Dad. We've agreed this. You're not gonna stop smoking. Okay, that's it, Dad. Now you're grounded." You can't ground your dad. You can tell your dad again and again, "Dad, please stop smoking. Please stop smoking." But you can't discipline your dad or discipline your mum. You can't do that. Similarly, you can't discipline your husband or tell him off, right? That's the prerogative. That's the prerogative of the husband. The husband can say, "No, I want you to go to the other room now," right? He can tell her what to do. You can't. A woman cannot tell her husband what to do, right? A man can punish his wife. A wife cannot punish the husband, right? And so we find very weird situations sometimes where men are scared of their wife, and it does happen, right? And that's it's off on so many levels, right? It's off on so many levels, right? Number one, it means Allah is not in the picture, because we're not talking about Allah, we're talking about me and you, and vying for power and who's got the upper hand and etc. It means Allah's totally out of the picture, which is really, really bad. And it means that there's no respect, right? That's like a parent who's scared of their child, right? Or a parent that bullies their child. That's like really messed up, right? This were the signs of the end of time, right? That the slave girl should give birth to her master. That's the same thing, right? Inqilab, right? Things are upside down, right? Oh, so am I trying to say that women should be scared of their husband? No, women should not be scared of their husband. Women should be scared of Allah, and because they're scared of Allah, they show respect to their husband. And men should be scared of Allah, and because they're scared of Allah, they show kindness and mercy to their wives. So Allah is number one. He has to be in the picture. But when you see a scenario like this, where this guy is generally scared of his wife, right? It's not a good situation, right? Do I need to ask my wife's permission? No, I do not have to ask my wife's permission. I need to see I need to see if it works with my wife, because I care about her. My decisions affect her. So I'm going to seek her advice. She might have advice, as we're going to see later on, that might have an insight that I don't have, A. B, what my decisions affect her, and I care about her. So I'm gonna talk to her about it and involve her. But it's not because she's gonna decide. She is not gonna decide about my life. I do not have to ask her about my life. And so the wife then is submissive to the husband, emotionally, physically, not religiously, meaning that's her own world, her relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are not the priest, you're not the pope. Financially, that's her home world. And then we'll talk about sexually in a second. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.